how that shit
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. How you doing, brother?
Oh, good, man. Look at that.
Look at that. We are alive.
Yeah, I sent you you didn't comment on it, but I thought it was hilarious on Instagram that pilots for absolutely no reason. Did you see that?
No, I missed it somehow.
Oh man, you got to check
I'll
that out.
I'll I'll make sure and find that today.
As a passenger on many a commercial airliner, I find that hilarious. So anyway, watch that.
I will. Yeah, sorry I missed it.
Yes. Good morning, brother Will.
Good morning, brother Rich. How you doing today?
Better than I deserve.
Awesome. Awesome.
I see you got a great show put together here. I've been looking at the slides.
Well, we're gonna take a little foray into commodities because if the prognostications of stagflation start to bear out, this is gonna be something we're gonna be talking about a lot.
You know, it's amazing. I was rewatching sections of The Big Short last night, and it was like I don't get this. You know, it's almost like 2 + 2 = fish, because as the price of the value of the bonds was going up at the same time the material inside the bond was crashing.
Yep.
It's like how can this be? It's like unless the whole thing is fraudulent. And I say that because I think back to 4.5 years ago, and I put this thing together. It's like, here's what's going to happen. We're going to go through this, and then we're going to have stagflation, then we're probably going to have hyperinflation. But if you would have told me the timeline, I'd have said it would have happened by now. And yet here we are.
Well, and funny you mentioned that because I think I've predicted 11 of the last 2 recessions. But in fairness to myself, they keep doing things that are irrational. Let's print more money. Let's have QE infinity, all these things. And I think what's happening is that they're just stretching their rubber band so much it's going to be even worse when we actually get there. But to your point about how, this doesn't make any sense, right?
Mhm.
Well, I mean, the market can stay irrational for a very long time as long as money keeps getting pumped in. And as to the timing, the Florida housing market is finally doing what I've been thinking it was going to do. It's going down dramatically, especially in certain areas. But it's I always think like you. I always think things are going to happen faster than they are. For the last 2 years, I've been saying it's coming. And people would buy houses and go up in value and be like, "What are you talking about?" Well, it's starting to go the other way. I mean, I just talked with a realtor this last week down there. I'd commented on a property she had listed, and she contacted me, and I was like, "I'm not doing anything. It's a buyer's market right now." And she was like, "Yep, you and everybody else just sitting back waiting, and nothing's moving, and all kinds of listings change to motivated seller will take any reasonable offer." That doesn't happen in a healthy market.
Exactly. And again, going back to The Big Short, like, oh, it's just a little gully. They're driving around. Oh, I'd say he's motivated. Whoever Steve Carell is playing, like, oh, I'd say there's a lot of motivated people in here. Oh yeah, just a gully.
Yeah, Steve. They didn't use it. They used Mark something. Steve Eisman is the actual person he was portrayed in that. And Eisman is on CNBC quite regularly right now. So he's a little more bullish than I am, but maybe he knows a lot more than I do too.
One never knows. Let's welcome some folks on the show. Who we got here, sir?
Well, we got Gerald Diaz, coin number 952.
Don Bothwell is on. This is good morning from Northwest Montana, coin number 2270. Right. Who is this? We got Bruce on from Michigan.
Yep.
Who else? We got Ted.
We got Ted on, and Ted did something that I really appreciate. He sent me more than a few comments over the years of the show here, saying, "Hey, can you touch on this? Can you do that?" So please, guys, if you get that, throw it in the coin members area or message Rich or I directly, please.
100%. Rich at AmericanWarriorSociety.com. Even if it's something for Will, I'll make sure that he gets it, guys. Will Rhodes is on from Missouri, coin number 2269. Our good friend Alan Kelly up there in occupied Virginia. He's behind the lines. That's what we got.
I see Tony's on this morning. Let's see here.
Dr. T.C. Fuller is on from the shores of Loch Garten near the Spey River in the Scottish Highlands, coin number 1620. Boy, do I wish I was with you, my friend.
Michael Gentile's on. Awesome. Good to see you, brother.
Morning, gentlemen. Looking for a good Boeing used parts.
Yeah, there's lots of people doing that right now. So
Are
what's this coin number?
do you fly
Oh,
a
go ahead.
Boeing? Do you fly a Boeing?
I do not know.
Okay, okay. Thank God I can stop worrying about you then.
There's plenty of other things to worry about with me. Um,
Well, that's the truth.
well, you didn't have to
Cool.
agree that quickly. You could have at least pretended to think about it for a moment there, brother.
I gotta keep it real on this
That's
show.
right. That's right. Nobody's gonna listen to us if they don't think we're honest. So, what's this coin number stuff they're talking about?
Man, I was hoping you was gonna ask me that. The coin number to the American Warrior Society. Over the past 10 years, the American Warrior Society has been the premier destination for all your self-defense, firearms, and combatives needs. We got everything from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, edged weapons, less lethal. We have, how do you shoot a taser? What are the considerations when using a taser? Picking pepper spray, low light considerations, everything and anything you need at the price of less than $1 a day, folks. So please take advantage of that. Click the links in today's show notes. If you want to pick up a copy of one of Dr. Fuller's amazing books, he's got a third one coming out. If you want to pick up a copy of The Rich Brown's book, go to therichbrown.com and you can get a copy of On Violence and Varietals. Dr. Gordon Botson is on as well from Ohio. Now, let's get into the show, Will. You got a fantastic show. Tell us about the Fear and Greed Index, my friend.
All right, so we touch on this one every week. It's been hovering right around this mid 40s, going between fear and neutral. And I think the market's trying to figure out what's going on. There's always a lot of moving parts in the market right now, but there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment. And I had to find some chart to put underneath that, and I just chose a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. And you'll notice the trend since October of last year has been generally downward with that, but really not much. The consensus I've read out there says until rates get back down below 5, we probably won't see the housing market loosen up because nobody's going to give up a 3% mortgage for a 7.5, but 5 might get close enough to start freeing some stuff up. We'll see how that shakes out. The other thing too is what's going to lower rates is bad economic times. So even if rates come down, it may happen because the economy finally goes into that long predicted recession, and then folks don't have the money or the means to buy a new house. And there is an odd thing that happens when rates initially decrease. Home prices typically go down for a short period of time. By short period of time, I'm talking 3 to 6 months. The reason for that is the inventory spikes. Rates go down. Oh, now we can do something. So before you buy a house, you sell a house. So usually the inventory spikes. When that inventory spikes, it drives prices down just through supply and demand. So it's a weird market out there, and there's a lot of your boomtown markets are really suffering. All of Florida is struggling right now, and then the other ones you heard a lot about during the COVID times, Boise, Austin, Dallas, Atlanta, Charlotte, just take them all off. So it's going to be an interesting time here for housing. And of course you throw the election in here, and it's going to be the next year or so. It could get a little sporty.
Yeah. And again, something we often talk about here when it comes to sporty, it may not just be economically sporty. It may not just be physically sporty. It could be something else. Like you and I talked about going all the way back to COVID, late February 2020, I think it was. I started playing with the math on this thing that they were talking about in China, building spreadsheets, and next thing you know, my wife is like, "What are you doing?" I'm screwing these brackets onto the doors and getting a 2x6 to fit in it. And it's like,
yep.
I'm like, well, maybe you sometimes it's a math problem. You can't have this without some sort of inbound summer of love to accompany this pandemic. If the math plays out, we're going to have some sort of pandemic. I don't know how the government's going to respond. People are going to act weird. Hence the brackets on the door. Now we live in a very rural community, and nothing really happened where I lived. But if you lived in Chat or Chop or wherever, you had a completely different experience. And who knew that George Catalyst was going to be the match that set it all off?
Yeah.
But to that point, though, I think it's what you're speaking about, is it not?
Yeah, it is. And it's localized, right? I'm sure somewhere there, in fact, I know there's certain areas in the Northeast, the housing market's doing pretty decent. because the supply is so constrained. Um, and it's really constrained nationwide. Really, it's weird because it's used to be we would talk about home prices were going up, down. There's this problem, there's that problem, and it was basically nationwide. But to your point, you're spot on. Isn't now it's a much more localized experience, which
Yeah.
also makes it a lot harder for the federal government to address these problems. And local governments overwhelming um, go-to playbook is call the feds. They got the money, they got the resources.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have the ability to, fill all these holes. So it'll be interesting to see how things
Well, and
shake
the other
out
thing
here.
is it comes with strings attached.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, we're a very conservative, predominantly Protestant Christian community.
Hmm.
And if you go to Uncle Sam for some money, not a problem, but it's going to come with whatever the executive in office thoughts and feelings are about that those straps that attach.
Hmm.
What's Bill Armstrong say?
It says something to remember is that a person can be smart and calm, but a group of people becomes a mob at the drop of a hat, especially when there's no consequences anymore, right?
Mm. Oh yeah, you couldn't go to church because of COVID. You couldn't go to the gym and work
Hmm.
out and stay fit and healthy
Yep.
because of COVID. But you know what you could do? Burn cities to the effing ground. Tell me
Well,
how that makes sense.
the heat kills COVID.
Oh, that's
The
right.
and then the smoke off the burning infrastructure. Only the smoke from burning infrastructure kills COVID.
Sadly, one of the things I dislike about humans is our mental bandwidth, our institutional memory, call it whatever you want, is so small. I don't want to let these people off the hook for what they did
Yeah.
to our country, to these mom and pop businesses, etc. And yet it seems like COVID, man, it was a long time ago. Hey, man,
Yeah.
people that made these bad calls and did a lot of terrible
Hmm.
things, they should be held accountable. I'm talking to you, Dr. Fauci. You know who I'm talking to.
And made a lot of money off of it too.
That's
A
exactly right. If
lot
you
of money.
profited from the suffering of others, man.
And everybody, and to an degree, well deserved. Like to bash on whether it be hedge funds or bankers who made money off the housing crisis and giving loans to people who didn't have it coming. Well, what about Fauci?
Yeah,
What
I
about
agree
the
with
other
that.
people at NIH? They made tens of millions of dollars off of this, and
Yeah.
other things like it that are much smaller scale. Of course, nobody's calling for big investigations on that.
No, and to your point about, there's a trickle, there is really a Reagan-esque trickle down effect when you've got this hedge fund exploiting these market conditions or that, or, you're going to talk about commodities a little bit, et cetera. Well, that trickles down to Rich and Will's Roth IRAs and
Hmm.
401ks and all those kind of things.
Yep.
So collectively, we benefit from it, whether we like to admit it or not. Am I
Yeah.
wrong in that?
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I get a kick out of some people I know who uh, will decry these things while at the same time going, "Hey, my 401k is at an all-time high." I'm like, dude,
Exactly.
that's you. And I'll tell you right now, I don't have the wherewithal to sue a major corporation, but I would certainly take part in a class action lawsuit if I found out that they weren't maximizing their profits. That's their duty legally.
For legal and
And
fiduciary duty. That's correct.
right. So yeah, so you know, it'd be part of the deal. And yeah, they're gonna get sued and they're gonna get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and I love Bill Armstrong is on this morning. Good morning, Bill. I ran into Bill at his beautiful firearms range, Meade Hall, out in McLeod, Oklahoma. I encourage anybody to get an opportunity to go out there. Please do so. Bill says if there are no consequences now, there will be more crap behavior. Yeah, the condition of moral hazard is so incredibly important and so
Yep.
often overlooked.
Yep. And it's something, there's a great clip. I think it came back during the housing crisis. Rick Santelli on CNBC, where they started announcing, I think it was the QE programs. He was talking exactly about moral hazard. And I had never heard of moral hazard prior to that time in whatever that was, 08-ish. And as you look around, that's all we see.
Yeah,
Whether
and
you're talking about society, you're talking about the stock market, it's all moral hazard because why
yeah,
not take those risks? Somebody's going to bail us out.
yeah. It's disgusting. Anyway, back to the show. We're going to have
Yeah.
a lot of these little sidebars here, so I hope you enjoy this
Yeah.
morning's show. Please like, comment, and share, please.
So, software company plans to pay tens of millions in ransom to hackers who crippled car dealerships across America. I'm throwing this up here. I mean, okay, fine. Kind of who cares? I mean, somebody couldn't close a deal on their car. If it would have been my car, yeah, I've been frustrated. They're doing paper, but it was 15,000 dealerships across the country. And this software is what they use not only for sales but scheduling service. Is basically the backbone software of a lot of dealerships,
Mm.
and they're going to pay out the money to these hackers apparently, and they wouldn't disclose the amount. But the reason I bring it up is it's just becoming more and more prevalent. And as these folks get paid off, they just have more resources to go do more, right?
Yeah, it's the Barbary pirates in the early 1800s. It's the Somali pirates today. It's
Mhm.
human behavior. Oh, you're willing to pay for this?
Yep.
It's the FARC in Colombia. I mean, I can
Mhm.
go all day long, but
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I think this is the one. This is one of the Ascension one we're going to talk about here in a moment. They think they're out of Eastern Europe. Who knows for sure,
yeah,
of course.
who knows?
But it's interesting because now they're reaching out to things that are like, really, they attack car dealerships, and it's like, oh, well, they're getting that much money. Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, and this is
You
a
know,
lot safer. You can sit in your basement and do it. You don't have to get on a boat and go 50
yeah,
miles, over the horizon to take on a oil tanker.
yeah.
Is that
And
beeping on your end or is that in my
it's on my
Canon?
end. Bear with me one second here. Let me take care of that.
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't need to that I wasn't having some sort of mini stroke. Yeah, this is paying tens of millions of dollars to hackers. Just guess what it's going to do, folks. And the next time it's going to be your healthcare, and they're going to lock up all your healthcare data, your inability to get mom the medication she needs, etc. It's going to be bad. Tina is on. Thank you for being on today, Tina. Glad to have you. Maria is on as well. And Will is back. Let's see if we got that sorted out. All right, Will, I can hear you, my friend.
Sorry about that. My son's
Yeah,
room, one of my son's rooms, right behind me here, and he spent the night at a friend's house and apparently forgot to turn off his alarm. So sorry about that.
no worries.
So, all right. So, healthcare organizations, Bill, great comment as
Mhm.
we look at this. So the reason we brought this up maybe 2 weeks ago that this was happening, it talked about how the healthcare workers are dependent on these systems, and that's not a fault on them. It's a system that helps them do their jobs better, and especially in the case of medications, keeps from having bad interactions because it'll flag, oh no, don't give him that for another 2 hours, or don't let Rich have this, and all because he's taking this other medication.
Mhm.
Um, and they say that that was happening. There were medication errors that did happen, and delayed or lost lab results, which is going to delay care, right?
Mhm.
So it got me to thinking from a preparedness standpoint, um, what can we do to help with this? And today, my variety is contacting both of the healthcare networks that we go to here in our area and saying, email me a copy of all of our records, please. I
Yeah.
want to print those off and put them in a 3-ring binder by person,
Mhm.
and just that we can take that with us so that it's not just, oh, there's a family history of this, or I'm taking that. It's, here's the dates, here's the amounts, here's the whole history.
Yeah, I did exactly this, and I've got it all in a fireproof box and on
Mhm.
paper, and then I've got the PDFs. I paid my son when he was home on school vacation. Scan all this in on
Mhm.
this terabyte. Throw the terabyte in the fireproof box,
Mhm.
in another location because I don't want to be held hostage for this.
Yep.
And Bill has a great point, and he's absolutely right. He says not only are they getting paid on the millions of dollars to turn it back on, but they
Mhm.
also get paid from having all that personal identifiable information that they can then
Yes,
sell on the dark web.
for
Uh,
sure.
yeah.
Yep.
Guile is on also. Thank you, Guile, for being on today, sir.
Yes, thank you, sir. Good to see you. So I brought up the Ascension thing again. I really couldn't find if it had been all resolved or not. Um, there wasn't anything clear cut on it, so I'm assuming if it's not resolved, it's at least they've found a good workaround on it. So I bring it up I brought it up on the slide here just to bring up that technique that I thought about, and you were way ahead of me and took care of it.
Jamie Dimon believes the U.S. public debt is the most predictable crisis the economy faces, and yet in just 3 months, America has added another 2.1 trillion to its tab. Let me say that again because maybe people didn't hear that. And yet in just 3 months, 90 days, America has added, let's say this another way, 2.1 trillion doesn't sound that big. So let me say it another way, 2,100 billion. That's what every trillion's 1,000 billion. That and again in seconds, that was over 60,000 years ago. If you put those trillions in seconds, 2 trillion seconds ago was 60,000 years ago. You know, you were just now coming out of East Africa. Your ancestors were. Okay, it's a crazy amount of time. Big number.
And this, yep. And this is, you know, this national debt thing, guys. I mean, I remember old guys my age when I was young in the 80s saying it was the end of the world when, you know, the national deficit hit 800 billion total under Reagan back then. And that was it. It's going to be all over. Well, obviously that can's been kicked trillions of dollars down the road right now. So is it going to end here? Is it going to end at 40 trillion, 50 trillion? I don't know. But there does come a point where it becomes harder and harder to manage. As we've talked about, the interest on the debt this fiscal year is going to be greater than the budget for the Department of Defense. And as the boomers,
which again is bigger than the next 26 biggest countries after that. I mean, it's insane.
It is insane. And where it ends, I don't know. How it ends, I don't know. But as Jamie Dimon says, it's the most predictable crisis because at some point it's going to happen.
It's a math problem. I mean, I know I sound like a broken record, but it just really is. At some point, it's just mathematics. And we can look to Brazil, of course, as an example of what happens in these situations. And for me, the fear is once you wreck the economy with this runaway spending, then you have to usher in something like CBDC. Now, before we had the technology for CBDC, the Brazilian economy tried something called the Plano Real, which was this whole new currency pegged to the US dollar. And again, they created it out of fairy dust. Because once people believe it doesn't have value anymore, then we have to create something that does have value. And for me, this is just setting the trap. And again, I've no temple hat. I don't want to mess up what little bit of hair I have left. but I mean, when you look at this, you go, what else could be going on here? Because is it just the psychology of the ship can't sink?
I think that's exactly what it is. Because you look at everything and they're like, it's always been fine. It will be fine. And if you look at, you know, the average age of our Congress critters up there in DC, you know, they've got a point. They've done this for decades and it keeps working out. Now, that doesn't mean it's always going to work out, but it'll work out enough for them to enrich themselves and their families so they can get through whatever happens.
Right.
And you know, it's tough when
you know what but you know what these rich tech bros are doing, man? Right now, there's a whole subculture running around the world snapping up different passports. That's the new Lambo. That's the, you know, whatever. Why are they doing that? Because the rats, I think, know that the ship is going to sink at some point.
Yep. And nobody wants to be the last one off. So it's going to come to a head. When? Man, I wish I knew, because I'd make so much money. But there'd be a tropical background here. You know?
What's Joseph say there, Will?
Colorado is no longer a free state, but the budget must be balanced per state constitution. Time for a similar amendment on the federal level. That's been brought up for a long time. It's also a long-held theory why Reagan wound up running the debt up. It started under him. There's no two ways about it. But he came out of a governorship, and I believe now, I think every state has a balanced budget requirement. And he thought when he cut taxes, the federal government would have to curtail their spending. This is Reagan I'm referring to. Well, that certainly isn't what happened. Now, I don't know if that's true, that whole story is true or not, but that's a common depiction of what was going on then. It will never get a balanced budget amendment. It is not going to happen.
Yeah,
There's no way.
Don't pay the House. Don't pay Congress,
Yeah,
Senate, nobody until we
yeah,
get it balanced and see what would
yeah,
happen. But guess what? That
yeah,
will never happen. That
yeah.
amendment will never see the light of day.
Although I'll tell you what, I think we spoke to this. Vivek Ramaswamy spoke about term limits, and
Hmm.
he had what I thought was just a brilliant idea, which is it doesn't happen right now.
Hmm.
It's in 20, I'm making up the year, 2033,
Yeah.
term limits get imposed. Far enough out that it won't affect the people who are voting on it now.
Yeah.
Because
The Congress critters that are voting on it now.
right, because
Yeah.
they're not going to vote for it. But if it's some period of time out that isn't going to affect many of them because of their age, or they'll be like, well, by then I'll be, whatever age if I keep getting reelected that I can retire. Well, now it's a no threat to them,
Mm-hmm.
but it's hanging out there. And a person, this is me throwing this in, they can say it takes a 3/4 majority vote to get rid of the term limits, right?
Hmm.
So something like that. Now, a balanced budget amendment or setting a cap on what the deficit can be, because in fairness, the flip side of the coin is if we are going to have a debt-based monetary system, part of the way to get out of bad times is government spending. It's just part of how the system works. We all hate it, but it works. And we saw it during COVID. It worked. It kept us from going into a Great Depression, right? Now we're dealing
Hmm.
with the aftermath of that, of course. And we all saw it coming. But
Hmm.
the fact of the matter is, during that time, it kept us out of a depression.
And what
So,
look back at TARP, the Troubled Asset Relief Program.
mhm.
It was cheap by today's standards.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
in the last 90 days, you just put a slide up there that
Mhm.
we spent 2.1 trillion. TARP cost
Yeah.
what, 600 billion, and we got
800,
most
I
of the
believe it
money
was.
back.
Yeah.
800
Seven,
billion. Yeah.
700, whatever it was.
Eventually, we're
Chunk
talking about
change.
real money.
I
Come on.
mean, right now, well, you take 2.1 trillion, divide that by 3, that's about 800 or 700 billion.
Hmm.
So now it's there's a TARP every month.
Yeah, exact. Oh, that don't scare the shit out of you. I don't. You're not paying attention.
Yeah.
What does Don have to say there?
You can't have a balanced budget and buy votes at the same time. Wow. Yeah, dead on.
Don is
Dead
always
on. Yeah.
Don's always got some good stuff.
Boom. Yep.
Hopefully, I'll get to see you there, Don. I'll be in your part of Montana here in August, so I'd love to
Yep.
have a pint with you.
Yep.
Um,
I want to jump back to Bill's comment that I missed while I was taking care of that.
yeah.
Always a balancing act in tech between security and usability.
Mhm.
And I did read an article last night as I was looking at that Ascension stuff. They've tracked it back to an employee downloading a file that was corrupted.
Yeah.
Now, it probably looked legit. I'm sure, at hospital, I'm sure they have all the firewalls in place, have all that, but there's still these humans.
Let's talk
And
about that. That is the obviously probably where you're going to go with that. That is the most vulnerable link in the chain.
mhm,
Cybersecurity professionals like my son, they can
mhm.
create the most robust stuff out there, but it can't stop Betty from thinking she's downloading sourdough recipes and she just let in a virus, right?
Right, for sure.
And to this point, my son right now, one of the programs he's working on is in concert with CISA, which is like I forget what it stands for, but it's part of the Department of Homeland Security that has the mandate to get all American companies
Mm,
online with some sort of robust cybersecurity.
okay.
And that speaks to exactly what he's saying. They're trying to make it user friendly enough so that every little company in America can easily adopt it for free and it could scale with your business, whether big or small. It has to do a whole lot of amazing stuff for you.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's coming. He's working on it right now.
Yeah, awesome. And even air gap systems can get viruses on them because there's humans involved.
Oh, yep.
So yeah, it takes a lot of discipline, and we all get lax, right?
Mhm.
These things. I mean, I'm running what am I looking for here? The virus protection and all that stuff. But every now and then you hit a website and it won't let me on that. I just had one this morning. I was looking at some car parts and wouldn't let me on. So yes, it's safe. Was it? I mean, I got it off a link off of a forum. Was it safe? I mean, I went with it and it turned out to be okay.
You think?
I think, but it don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. But it's the downside of the convenience of it, the usability of it, as Bill brought up. He's dead on.
Yeah.
So So this one I found interesting. You want to read this top part to us here, brother?
Sure. That's according to the latest report from the Congressional Budget Office. In February, the CBO said its predicted deficit for the year was 1.5 trillion, growing to 2.6 trillion by 2034. However, in a report released this week, the CBO wrote, quote, in CBO's current projections, the deficit for 2024 is 400 billion or 27% larger than it was in the agency's February 2024 projections, and the cumulative deficit over the 2025-2034 period is larger by 2.1 trillion or 10%.
All right, so let me break that down for you. So what it was here is the CBO came up with a projection. If you can bring that back up, brother, because
Absolutely.
Thank you. I see how you're testing me there, and I failed miserably. I will next time too. It's just like the reports at work. Will sets low standards and consistently fails to achieve them. So back in February of 2024, the CBO came out and said the deficit is going to be whatever the number was. They come out with a report last month and go, oh yeah, it's going to be 400 billion more for this year. So in what, 4 months, they increased their projection for this year's deficit by 27% during the best economy ever.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that downside? Buying votes, election year.
Exactly.
Yep. And they increased their projection for the deficit between now and 2034 by 10%.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not going to change anytime soon, guys. The boomers are eating up money, which is the bottom part here. And this is a quandary, and they've backed themselves in this corner. The deficits are a problem for lawmakers in the coming years because of the burden of servicing total debt load, which we talked about, an aging population that pushes up the total cost of Social Security and Medicare, and rising healthcare expenses. Yeah. And this is where these higher interest rates factor back through. Healthcare systems cost a lot of money to run. Those beautiful buildings, those nice lobbies, those little no gun signs, they all cost a lot of money, right? Well, when they're paying higher interest rates for that, that works its way all the way back through the system to an extent to the national deficit and the cost of running the government because of Social Security and Medicare. And then we're paying more money out to carry that debt load. It all comes back around a big vicious circle.
You're just a ray of sunshine this morning, Will.
Aren't I, though? Yes.
Thank God, man.
Caffeine helps, though. I see John Shriver's on from Ucott, Oklahoma. Good to see you.
Good morning, John.
So what's
I love that Gerald says free thumb drives at the new store opening. And this is, I tell you, we laugh, but this used to be a marketing thing. A lot of people would do, like 9 Inch Nails, I think, was one of the first bands to do this. They would leave little black thumb drives laying around inside the concert venue. People would pick it up, put it in, you get to download the new song.
Okay.
And maybe some malware. I'm not using the band of doing anything like that, but you just don't know. I mean, I was on active duty when the damn DOD got hit. Somebody stuck a thumb drive in there and it unleashed something, and we could never use our flash, the USB drives ever again. And I think it's still that way to this day, which is terrible.
Yeah.
It made my life hell as a guy who traveled a lot for the Marine Corps. I had to carry a stack of CDs instead of a little thumb drive I could put in and do my work. It was crazy.
Yeah, because there can never be a virus on a CD, right?
I know. It's I don't know. It's so stupid.
Yeah. Don't use logic. So this is a chart of the U.S. government interest payments as a percentage of GDP. And you can see we're going full on hockey stick here on the right. And unless bear in mind, part of this is interest rates. So if interest rates go down, this will go down, right? So the point here is that when people talk about this, well, what we need, the biggest driver right now of this is higher interest rates. Problem is, to get interest rates down takes a recession. That's the only time they've ever lowered interest rates on their own, is some sort of economic problem. Well, then during that economic problem, they have a tendency to spend money to try and prop up the economy, because nobody gets reelected during a recession. So we may have finally backed our way into this where, okay, interest rates go down. So therefore this interest payments as a percent of GDP should go down, but now they tack on all this extra debt.
Mhm.
So even at a lower rate, we're still paying more interest, right?
Mhm.
So are we backed into that corner finally after decades of thinking it? And we can look at the 70s here in this chart, 70s and the 80s, and it hockey stick then for sure. The difference was it was mostly rates then because the
And not
national
at the same speed that we see that hockey stick,
Mhm.
man. You see what I'm
Yep.
saying? Even in the late
Yep.
70s, it's spread out over a 3-year period. Here,
Right.
it's all occurring in probably the last 18 months.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So just the trend is your friend until it isn't, and it sure isn't here.
Mhm.
So could this be the big one? Yeah, it could be. It'll take months to play out. Enjoy your summer.
And once again, more sunshine.
What you
Speaking of
gonna do,
sunshine,
right? All right.
speaking of sunshine,
So
what's going on with these commodities? This is wheat, right?
yeah, this is wheat. And the first box there, kind of blue box, you kind of hard to see where they come apart. If you look at the bottom line of those two blue boxes there, you can see where they switch out. But the first one, wheat goes up 33% from 7 March through late May, and then it's come down 20% from there. So it's kind of back to where it was. But the reason these commodities are good to keep a loose eye on, and you can track them on Yahoo Finance, just at the little search bar at the top, just type in wheat and it'll come up wheat futures, wheat contracts. It doesn't really matter which one you pick. What you're looking for is the general trend. Because what happens with wheat prices is going to make it into your grocery bill in about 30, 60 days.
Mhm.
Even obviously, we know we only harvest wheat once or maybe twice a year if you're talking winter wheat. Um, the but these prices will change what's going on in the marketplace, and that makes it through to your grocery bill. So now this has come down. It spiked up substantially there, and we're going to find this to be a fairly common trend through this. So just something to keep an eye on, and you can tell where your grocery bill or your energy bill, as we'll get into, is going because these contracts front run your retail pricing. The lags vary, but say 30 to 90 days in general.
Mhm.
So this gives you some information to work with. Okay.
Now, can we talk about this a little bit more? I wonder
Sure.
what role the war in Ukraine plays in this. I'm googling right now as you were talking. As of May 2024, Ukraine exported 15.77 million metric tons of wheat,
Mhm.
but it's a significant decrease in the last 2 years. So, do you think something like conflict is driving this, or is there something else going on?
In the case of wheat here with Ukraine connection, great thought. I hadn't even thought of that.
Mhm.
There's that part of it. There's also just the money printing, and the a part of it too is the market gets on something.
Mhm.
You sometimes crack, sometimes meth, and it will do weird stuff. Now,
Mhm.
whether that weird stuff is driving prices up or down, we get to feel that. So
Mhm.
it doesn't really have to. A lot of times it ties into things like you're talking about. Um, Unless I'm trading this, honestly, I don't look at what's causing it. I try to get very stoic about it and just be like, this is what's happening. Therefore, this is what's going to happen to my grocery bill or my costs.
Yeah, and that Michael
So
Gentili's on to the same thing. I said, it was a spike in anticipating disruptions. I don't
could
know.
well be, and these are great evaluations that you and Michael are doing. Honestly, I don't go that deep into it unless I'm trading it.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at this as what's the overall trend across a lot of different commodities here, and we're going to touch on a bunch of others here.
Mhm.
More to just kind of see what's coming because when this spiked up like this, what happened to people's grocery bills? They went up. So they had less money to spend other places. I'm
Mhm.
looking more at that overall trend when I look at it. If you want to go trade wheat, you do you. I don't touch that.
Yeah. Go with God.
Yes, yes.
I
But
want to get to some of
eggs
these
on Dios,
comments.
and you know how you make a small fortune trading commodities, Rich?
Have a
You
large start with a large.
start with a large one. Yep, that's how you make a small fortune. Yep.
That's right. Let's see. Eric is on. Hello, sir.
Yeah, good
Glad to
morning.
have you on. Coin number 606. Gal says, is there any way we can send malware or virus to China's computers so they will stop conquering Asia? This is an interesting thing he's proposing because Guile, of course, is in the Philippines, and his point is, there's a tit for tat every single day
Mhm,
between the Philippines and China, and wouldn't that be a hoot? Not for you,
mhm.
Guile, sir. escape to America, pal. But if instead of taking Taiwan first or making some kind of play on Taiwan, they see how much they can get away with the
Mhm.
Philippines and see if the world does anything. And if
Yeah.
they don't, all right, now we go because
Mhm.
we got it sandwiched in. What does Joseph say?
Important to have a written household budget and stick to it. He says he only spends 5% of his paycheck on hobbies, and his main hobby is IDP and USPSA. Good for you, sir. Yeah, we did a budget show way back,
Mhm.
and it's that's I still keep a budget. I use the same spreadsheet I made up when I was in my early 20s when I realized I had to get control of this. I still use the same spreadsheet to this day, and I
Mhm.
track every week. I At the end of the week, is my Saturday morning routine. I track, where am I at in the stock market and all that stuff. And then once a quarter, I do a personal financial statement and go
Mhm.
through and total everything up, and go on Zillow or Redfin and value the house, and go through and do that. And you get what you measure, right? And if a
Mhm.
person
Exactly.
is looking to build wealth and save for retirement, things like that, I've never liked the attitude of, just check your statements once a quarter. Well, that doesn't work for me. If it works for someone else, hey, good for you. Awesome. I'm glad you figured out something that works for you. It doesn't work for me.
Now we had a friend over recently. Like I told you, we've had a lot of guests over recently on here at the compound. Which again, the compound stretches from my brother's place, my dad's place, my daughter next door. It's this big piece of. And he was like, kind of laughing at Lisa because Lisa's accounting for every single penny in the spreadsheet I built for her, right? And I'm like, yeah, this is how we, are able to do the things we do. We don't
Yeah.
just kind of willy nilly with our finances. Like,
Yeah.
no, it's we stay on it constantly.
Yep.
Um, Let me get to a couple of comments here. Bill says fertilizer going up a great deal affects costs massively for a lot of other crops instead of just primary crop. And he's right. We've talked a lot about this prior to
Mhm.
Russia even invading, did we not?
Yes, we did. And a major input to fertilizers, to your point, which honestly I hadn't put together with this, so thank you so much for that comment, is natural gas. Plays a
Mhm.
huge part in fertilizers. And we've got a natural gas chart coming up here pretty soon. So
Ooh,
yeah, so we'll see what's going on there. All right. So corn.
corn.
Now we know corn is in everything.
Yep.
Take a look at the back of, I don't care what it is. Go to the excuse me. Go to the grocery store and flip over whatever you want to pick up, and the uh, the back of it somewhere is going to say high fructose corn syrup, guaranteed.
Which again, not, just stick to the outside of the grocery
Yeah,
store.
yes, for sure.
You want to be healthier?
Except for fig Newtons. There's an
Hey,
exception for fig Newtons. I love my
uh,
fig Newtons. Okay.
yeah, I can
Um,
tell.
so this is corn. Now this one goes back to if you look at the far left of the chart here, beginning of 2024.
Mhm.
Um, some volatility, but basically flat, and now since middle of May, trending down. And we went through a spike there from late February into the first part of May. So again, not I don't really dig into these anymore to try and figure out why, what happened, because I'm not trading this. I'm looking at this more, okay, where are we at? What's this going to do to the overall economy? Because when these prices get driven up, this flows through to everybody's grocery bill. And some
Mhm.
things we're going to talk about here with oil and natural gas, it flows through into everything because you have to transport all that high fructose corn syrup to the stores.
Mhm.
Not to mention the energy input into making the corn and the wheat and so on and so forth. So this is just more. Let's zoom out and look at the big picture here. So
Yeah.
when you see these spikes happen, like say late February into May, as we're watching that happen, you know what's going to happen to food prices 30 to 90 days down the road. It's a
Uh,
given.
I want to, and corn and wheat. What's funny, these seed oils that are derivatives of these products that we're talking about, these commodities, are in. If it doesn't say high fructose corn syrup, trust me, there's a seed oil. There's something in
Mhm.
here. So
Yep.
again, this is part of the bigger picture. Now, I want to get to a couple things here. Donald says the
Sure.
Ramsey Every Dollar app is very useful, very user friendly for budgeting and tracking. Um, I haven't used that one. Of course, I used some of Dave Ramsey's tools 20 plus years ago to kind of get me and my lovely bride completely debt free. So everybody do you, but I recommend his products. Will is a little different. He's more, his risk tolerance is nowhere. It's galactic light years away from where mine is. I can safely say that, which is great because I think it balances the show out, right?
I think it's a great balance, and I still do a lot of the stuff Ramsey talks about, and I didn't know what I was doing. I tripped across experimenting, doing many of the things he advocates for. But you can also run hybrid systems here, guys. My month-to-month budget is very Ramsey-ish. But I run a higher risk tolerance in the market.
Yes.
So, and I play the game. I'll tell you right now, I got a mortgage on my house. I will always have a mortgage on my house because it's at 2.75%. And I'm not going to pull money out of investments and pay that off when I can go put them in tax-free municipal bonds making 5.1 right now.
Yeah. And again, I recommend everybody read, and I'll say this every damn show if I have to, The Psychology of Money. Fantastic, small little book.
Yep.
You need to have clearly defined relationship with money. And then as parents, we need to teach that to our children because that was not something that was taught to me. My parents, God bless them, were completely financially irresponsible, had a lot of money pour through their hands and have nothing to show for it. So have that relationship with your dollars. I want to get to a couple of other comments. What do you think about what Tony says here, sir?
How much farmland and meat producing plants does China own? I'm going to assume you're referring to in the United States, Tony.
Like Smithfield, didn't they purchase them?
Smithfield, yeah, their own. I forget the name of the Chinese firm that owns Smithfield, but yes, they do. Smithfield is mainly pork processing. As far as farmland goes, I'm not sure. Now, I do know Bill Gates is the largest farmland owner, private farmland owner. I shouldn't say private, individual farmland owner in the United States.
But didn't Sarah Huckabee, governor of, I think she's Arkansas, right? She just signed a bill that China couldn't buy any farmland. I could be completely wrong about that.
I hadn't heard about that one. I know there's a movement afoot to do that, and I think it's a great idea. I mean, we need to. I mean, you want to talk about protecting resources? Well, there's the most valuable one we have right there because it produces our food. Yeah, I don't know about farmland they own, but I would look more at if they control it doesn't matter how many, pigs are raised. If there's nobody to process them or the outfit processing them chooses to ship that finished product overseas instead of here. Yeah.
This is a strategic thing, like whether it's petroleum or pharmaceuticals or food, these are strategically important to the United States. And let me throw one other, because we have known for a long time that the oil and gas companies have snapped up patents that conserved fuel and did some other very, very efficient things. They bought the patent and then they threw it in the trash so that nobody would ever get access to this technology. So what if China bought up a lot of farmland and then let it sit fallow?
Yep.
And then take what little bit did come through their processing plants and ship it overseas. And we're just sitting here, there's a whole lot of ways this can go bad. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out.
No, it doesn't. And this is one of those things where, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking of how, some not like-minded people would look at that. Oh, come on. You need to borrow Will's tinfoil hat here, Rich. Well, it doesn't happen overnight. I think people expect it to happen in that 95-minute movie when they sit down for Netflix. It's like, no, this takes decades to play out. And what's Don say here?
Don says Idaho restricts water to 500,000 acres of farmland. There's going to be some impact on grains and potatoes by the end of the growing season.
I also saw, in trying to figure out where to go with this week's show, in Iowa, there's a vote, I believe, this week on whether or not some company gets access to, oh gosh, I can't remember how many billions of gallons of water it was per year. For their processing. There was an article out of Kansas, farmers saying, hey, a reckoning is coming. The aquifers emptying out. And now there's an agreement between, well, I shouldn't say, it's an old agreement, an existing agreement between the U.S. and Mexico to move water back and forth. And Mexico's not keeping up on their end because they don't have any water to ship up.
Yeah, shocking.
Yeah.
What do you think
So,
about Joseph's comment for those that may be listening? Says, "Do you think China will invade Taiwan on November the 5th?"
well,
Just
that's
saying, throw
across
that
the
out, Will.
international date line, Joseph. So, is it really the 5th or the 6th? No, I'm kidding. Honestly, I don't think. Boy, that's a good question. Let's see here. Let's kind of war game this out a little bit. Let's for the first one, let's say Biden gets reelected.
Mhm.
So, do they invade right away? Could be. I mean, they know they're dealing with a weak leader, right? They know that they've rattled the sabers many times and nothing's happened. So I'd say it's a possibility. I don't know if it'd be that quickly afterwards. Maybe they wait till the holiday season, wait till our Christmas holidays. If let's say if Trump gets elected, well, he's more of a wild card. They know what they're dealing with as far as a more aggressive person, someone who kept them in check last time. Um, but is he gonna have bigger fish to fry than that immediately? So do they wait for something to happen? Hard to say. Really, it's one I think deserves some thought though.
Yeah, and I tell you, let's take that a little step further. Thank you to 15 folks watching us live. Please like and hit that share button. Comment if you think they will invade or won't invade. I'd love to see what the
Yeah.
unofficial poll says here. But what about Putin and Kim Jong Un signing the Mutual Defense Pact about a week ago?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. And then I saw Putin was also in Vietnam, and that one's got that one's a shot across the bow because I mean, okay, yeah, so he was in North Korea. Okay, no shocker there. But now Vietnam, we're pretty buddy with Vietnam at this point in history. So they're slowly chipping away at this. And that BRICS just alliance keeps expanding. Now it's still pretty darn small. I mean, we do need to keep in mind that our economy is 40% larger than China's, and China's economy dwarfs all the other economies in the BRICS nations combined.
Yeah.
So we're still the big boy on the lot. However, we don't have to get completely beaten up to be damaged. So I'm not saying don't worry about the whole BRICS thing, but again, this stuff takes decades to play out. So
yeah, and that's where you and I think we're always our timeline, and I don't want to speak for you, but it seems like we're always like this is going to happen this year, the next 18 months, and then it takes a decade.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm very guilty of that for
Yeah.
sure. No two ways about it. Whether you want to talk about the Florida housing market that for 2 years I've been saying is going to go down, and now it's finally happening. Yeah, this is typical of my timing. I've come to realize this about myself. So,
No.
Yep. All right. So,
did we talk about corn already? We did, right?
We did talk about corn. Yeah.
Let's talk about natural gas, man.
Natural gas. Going to, I think it was Michael's comment about the inputs. I think it was, sorry if it wasn't you, Michael. So we can see natural gas spiked up, same kind of time frame. Okay. And it's coming back down right now. But it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out because if this stays elevated like this, all of its low back in February, that's going to come into fertilizer prices, which are going to, they'll start buying that up in this fall for planting season next year. So we'll keep an eye on this, see what happens. Natural gas is also very well known for being volatile. If you're tired of sleeping nights, start putting a lot of money in the natural gas because it will keep you up at night. Ask me how I know. So it's the other funny thing about natural gas is that the supply and demand is they're forcing electricity plants to shut down. The coal-fired ones, that's a given. Those are all going to go away. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it's what's happening. There's a lot of natural gas fired plants that are getting shut down too because want more solar and wind. So that is a big consumer of natural gas. And what's that going to do to the supply demand curve for that natural gas and therefore the prices, and that will flow through to everything else. So we'll see. So the point here is it's spiked up and it's coming back down. So we'll see how this shakes out. Now oil, go back one.
Go back one.
I think so. Yep. There we go.
Sorry about that.
Yep. So West Texas Intermediate crude. This is the oil price I follow. They all pretty much track the same way over longer periods of time. The We have seen a spike up in oil prices here. Really, it happened since Biden administration said they were going to start refilling the SPR at. I think they said they would pay up to 70 or 72 a barrel. And we said, well, that just put a floor under oil. See if you can tell on this chart where that happened at, Rich. Right when it bottomed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, for those not tracking this, SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, but I thought we said, Will, we would only refer to it as the Political Petroleum Reserve.
Yes, the PPR. Yes. I was trying to make that not confusing for anybody who is brand new. So thanks for explaining that through there.
I think you're testing me. Like, see if Rich will catch me.
Yeah. So we can see we had a down channel there in oil prices from, say, April through June. And then it started spiking back up here. Some of this is supply and demand, summer travel season, that sort of thing. Some of it is also it got oversold and now it's bouncing back from that. I'm not sure what it's doing this morning. I haven't looked. But this will flow through to everything, because everything you buy at some point, there's an oil touch, whether it's direct with plastics or your gasoline or the stuff in your grocery store or the stuff at your local Walmart. It all had to get trucked there.
Or the this is a scary one, or the 250,000 nano plastic particles that you consume every day when you drink a 1 liter bottle of water. Mm-hmm. All those little petroleum particles flowing through your veins. Isn't that nice, Will?
So what you're saying is if I go give blood, I could get some oil.
Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere. It's everything. And
it is.
So let's talk about this real quick. What do you think is going to happen in the run up to the election with gas prices? We've seen, gas prices in the West Coast are insane, $5 and $6 a gallon, no matter where you go. Are we going to see this come down before the election or not?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. So why refill the PPR right now? Right. Well, then you got something to drain come October.
Correct.
That's my guess.
Agree.
And they'll find a reason. There'll be an excuse they'll come up with. It certainly won't be to influence the election.
Oh, God, no. Come on. Man.
No.
There's probably a law against it somewhere.
Yeah. Yep. So what's Gerald say there?
Gerald says, I cannot pronounce that. Taiwan Q Shen. No idea. I'm from East Tennessee. Can't help you. With nearly 200,000 acres in Oregon, is the second largest foreign owner of U.S. land, according to land ownership publication, The Land Report. Not surprised.
It only takes 200,000 to be the second largest.
Yeah.
I mean, that's in the big scheme of life, 200,000 acres isn't a lot of land.
Right. I'd like to own 200,000 just for the record.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So this one, copper. Copper is an interesting one, guys. Copper's in market speak, copper is referred to as Dr. Copper. Because Dr. Copper can tell you where your economy is going, because copper is in a lot of stuff, especially now with the electrification of everything. So copper will typically lead the economy, not because copper controls everything, but because to grow an economy, you need copper, whether you're talking piping, electrification, building cars, you got copper wire, building houses, you got copper wire. So copper leads a lot of stuff. So let's just say housing. Okay, let's just break out the little housing piece of copper. Well, the lead up to building a house is you got to order all this wiring, right? You have to order a lot of things that have wires in it, right? So those orders are going to, as soon as that housing permit is pulled, then they start ordering these things, right? Well, then that copper is ordered, and then the home is built. That money makes it in the economy. That stimulates things, right? Now, this happens across a lot of different industries. Well, by the same token, it's just breaking out just the housing portion of this right now. If housing is slowing down, well, then they're not ordering as much copper, based things or things that have copper in it. So that drives the copper price down, because there suddenly isn't as much demand, but you don't see that for months until you see in this case, the housing slowdown. And again, it's across all kinds of things. I'm just breaking out that one little portion of it for an example here. So you can many times forecast what's coming by looking at copper, hence his name, Dr. Copper. Okay. And you can see what's been happening since mid-May. Now, that's a short period of time, to be sure. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not saying this means in 90 days the economy is going to crash, because that's not what this should be telling us. But if we zoom out to a larger view of this, we can watch for the overall trends. So keeping an eye on copper prices will show you where the world economy really is going. This is priced in world, right? This is a world market. So copper is a real important one to watch. I watch copper and oil regularly.
Let's talk about copper real quick, because I was looking at the chart. Go back to May of 2020, copper was trading a little over $2 a pound, and now it's almost 5.4 something. So basically a 200% return in the last 4 years. I mean, what other precious metal has gone up 200% in 4 years, right? So what does that tell you long term, if anything? Bill?
Well, again, that's a longer term look at things, which is awesome way to look at it. But what happened in the economy between 2020 and 2024 with the world economy, right? Did really good. And therefore copper went up. Now, if we're seeing a larger turn down, bear with me a second here. Actually, I'm going to look at a longer term chart here for a second. Bear with me.
Okay.
It would really help if I could type this morning. There we go. All right. So fortunately, guys, I can't share this with you directly. So back to let me zoom this in. So if we go back even further to, see, I'm looking at your 2020 to now thing, and where copper peaked at there on the chart that we're looking at in May of 24, that was a high going back. That may be an all-time high.
All-time high. Yeah.
I'm looking at this chart going back to 1999 now, and that was an all-time high in May of 24. Now,
I guarantee even if you factor in inflation, it's still an all-time high.
All time is a long time, as they like to say. So if something makes a top like that, and we're looking at, I think bad economic times are coming. I don't see how we get out of it at this point with everything we got going on. I'm talking worldwide here, guys. What's copper telling us? It made an all-time high, and now it's coming back down. Now it's only a few months, and it took years to get there. So we got to be patient, play it out, right? But I would say that when copper peaks like that, and let me get back to my other chart here. I'm looking at, sorry, I can't share that with you guys. It hit, now this was an all-time high in May of 24 we were talking about. It was close to that back in January of 2011. Okay, that was when the housing market was recovering after the GFC, right? And there were a couple of peaks before that in 06 and 07, and then it cratered in 07. And what happened to housing during that same time?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And copper, just looking at the chart here, it peaked copper peaked back then. It actually hit the same level about 4 or 5 times between the beginning of 2007 and June of 2008, and then it crashed. What happened to the housing market during then?
Exactly. Crashed.
And copper led that by about 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
Well, so something to keep an eye on. Maybe this
prognostication there.
Well, and we can look at this and go, well, maybe this is just a dip down and then it recovers because something happens to the economy does better. The point is to look at that trend. That's what we want to get out of this. Okay. And trends take a long time to develop, especially in something like commodities. Day to day, they move around a lot, but longer term trends take a long time to change and reverse because the whole economy has to change for that to happen.
Yeah, I'm like, Chile, and this is another scary thing when you look at who the largest producers of copper are: Chile, Peru, and some of those other countries down there in South America. Who has been making inroads into those countries?
North Korea? No, China.
Yeah,
I knew it was one of those.
It's not us.
Yeah, not us.
It's your old pal China. Now, why
Yep.
would they do that? Probably they just like Chileans. I mean, they like, I don't know, whatever
Yeah.
Chile, llamas and shit. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah,
Probably
I'm sure it's the llamas for
yeah,
sure.
llamas.
Yeah. Um, I almost quoted an 80 movie there just out of habit. Big hitter, the llama. And if you can name that movie, throw it in the comments. All right. So this is from Yahoo Finance. U.S. retail sales barely increase in sign of consumer strain. Anybody been talking about consumer strain? Rich?
Oh, I know a couple people.
Okay. All right. So the underlying part here is the meat of it. Americans exercise greater prudence given persistent inflation and a gradually cooling job market and emerging signs of financial stress. Interesting. So it takes a long time for these trends to develop. Just like we were talking about that. There's Don. Caddyshack is the movie. Very good, sir.
Well done, sir.
So the one thing to remember here is we're talking about U.S. retail sales, and I harp on this every time. These sales are nominal numbers when they give the retail sales report. It's not adjusted for inflation. So as we talk about this next part, keep that in mind. Bear in mind right now, inflation is running about 3%. So just over call it 0.15% per month right now. So the value of retail purchases unadjusted for inflation increased 0.1%. But if inflation is running 0.15% for a month, that means adjusted for inflation, that's actually down. And here's the part I always harp on as well, Mr. Broken Record. The downwardly revised 0.2% drop in the prior month. So they revised the month before that and actually called it a 0.2% drop. And again, that's not adjusted for inflation. So just that for inflation, it's like a 0.03 and some change drop in retail sales. This is why you're starting to see a lot of retailers struggle. Okay. And you'll notice now here, and this is where the devil's in the details, and this is the flip side of it. Excluding gasoline, sales rose 0.3%. So gas prices are part of retail sales. So if you take the gas out of that, the retail sales actually went up 0.3%. But adjusted for inflation, that's flat to just maybe marginally down. Well, when your workers are increasing or demanding more wages, higher wages, flat sales don't get it done.
No.
So we're seeing more of this long-term trend to retail sales are dropping. So
Can I go back to copper for just a second?
Yeah, please.
Because I was thinking, I was also Googling off here on the side.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1979, the U.S. and China signed China's first ever bilateral free trade agreement, right? So that go back to 1979. Do you know what country in the 200-ish countries in the world China signed the second one with?
Oh, no.
Chile.
Really?
And it took till 2000 in October of 2006, right before our GFC, that they signed this document with Chile, and it became the second ever bilateral free trade agreement. Like I said,
Interesting.
Yeah, weird. It's almost like they're looking at the long term where the economy's going.
Yep, and they are very good at that. You got to give them that. Yes, they played the long game. So, and for our retail sales here, remember about 65-70% of our economy is the consumer. So when the consumer has a bad day, week, month, year, the whole economy is going to have a bad time. So keep all that in mind. Now let's talk about that.
Speaking of the economy,
if we go back to that previous slide, gradually cooling job market. Now go forward to the next slide, brother.
Okay.
This is job openings. And this comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And you'll see that peaked in March 1 of 22 and has gone down 33%. Job openings are down 33% from then till the 1st of April, which is the latest data that's out from BLS. So if job openings are down, let's think about what happens here with the psychology of the worker. If a person feels like, there's plenty of job openings. If something happens here, I get mad or I want a raise, I'll go over there, right? Well, as those job openings come down, that's the start of the turn. You watch the job openings to see where the trend is going. That's the leading indicator. Well, if
Mhm.
job openings are down, that means hiring is going to come down because there's fewer open jobs, right? It's just this is the leading indicator for that. Okay. So again, watch the trend. Obviously, it spiked way up from 2020 to 2022. We all know the whys. We won't rehash that for the umpteenth time. But now we're going back the other way. Now you can look at that chart and say, well, hold on, Will. That level right there, that 8.059 million, you can see on the right side of the chart, that's still
Mhm.
way higher for job openings than you look back in 2018, 2019, right?
Sure.
But that's not how people feel,
No.
right? They're not going to be like, well, it's still better than it was in 18. No, that's ancient history. That's 6 years ago,
Exactly.
right? They're going to think back, how's that compared to 6 months ago, a year ago? That's what you feel, right? The more
Yeah.
recency bias. So the fact that historically it's still high doesn't matter. It's not what we're used to. Does that make sense?
Of course it does. And,
Okay.
it's, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking along the same lines with Michael. Is that correcting from COVID job losses? I mean, I think there's a whole lot of variables that play into this.
Mhm.
If there was a bigger set of variables that play into this, what would you think they were?
Well, to your point, Michael, is it correcting from that? Yes, it is. And not just so if we bring that chart back up, you'll
Sure.
see job openings right during COVID, that 2020, they went way down, right?
Hmm.
But then they spiked up after that.
Yeah.
And I guess my way of looking at this, Michael, is I'm trying to put myself in the mind of the normal worker out there.
Mhm.
Okay. They see fewer job openings out there and they're not going to feel as secure. When they don't feel secure, they're not going to spend money. When 70% of the economy is a consumer and they're not feeling confident in spending money and they're getting squeezed in these other ways we're talking about with persistent inflation,
Mhm.
that's going to drive behavior. That's the angle I'm looking at. I've really worked hard in my own investing. While I like to understand the whys, I'm trying to work more off of this is what's happening and how
Yeah.
do I react to it so that I can better provide for my family.
Yeah.
The why, it's fun to talk about.
Mhm.
I've worked pretty hard at trying to get away from that myself
That
because I
makes
spent too
complete
much time
sense.
on the whys because kind of who cares why?
Yeah.
Why is that
Exactly.
guy, why is this man accosting me at the gas station?
Exactly.
I don't care why.
Yeah.
I just know he's accosting me at this gas station. I need to do something about that. And I
Mhm.
should have spent more time in the training vault at American Warrior Society developing my skills so I could better protect myself. See how I
Amen.
went from job openings to that? Skill, brother. Skill.
Segway Sally, man. That's what they
Tell
call
me.
you on the streets. I want to talk about this.
Oh gosh. If only I knew a guy that can make a t-shirt of that.
I
Um,
know, right?
yeah. So
Yeah,
so
this is good because it leads to a deflationary cycle, right? Oh, not good in any way because
right.
the deflation could be just as bad as hyperinflation. But
Yes.
I mean, that's what I see in this pullback.
It could go there if it continues. We also don't know what's going to happen with job openings over time going forward. So
Hmm.
I'm looking at this going, okay, so what's probably going to happen with retail sales after this? Well, they're not going to
Hmm.
grow, right?
Right.
So as an investor, do I look at retail stocks? Do I look at Walmart? Do I look at Dollar Tree? Do I look at Target? And other things as well.
Hmm.
So, and then if a person does want to invest in retail, say that's just what they want to do, right? Well, maybe I'll put more money into Walmart and Dollar Tree instead of Target and Macy's
Hmm.
because as people pull back, they shop down. We've talked about
Exactly.
that previously.
Yeah.
So, again, watching this one thing and trying to figure out where that trend is going so we can get in front of
Love it.
it. Okay.
What is this?
This is average hourly earnings month over month. This is again from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And you'll notice since you can kind of see it off the left side of the chart, there's the hangover from COVID there in 2020, that volatility there. But you'll notice since the end of May of 21, it has been basically flat.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just been right through that little channel there. Now, this is hourly earnings, not total earnings. The difference there is hourly is how much you get paid an hour. total is hours worked times your hourly rate. So
Mhm.
total earnings have gone up during this time, no two ways about it. But we've also seen the cracks there form over the last 6 months to a year, where the average hourly work week went from 42, 43 hours. Now we're down around 35, 36, 37, somewhere in there. Okay. So this is also going to squeeze the consumer.
Mhm.
So as they're seeing fewer hours worked, a lot of them are seeing pay increases hourly, although according to this chart, they're still in this because I mean, this is everybody, right?
Mhm.
So you hear about, these people got a raise, those people got a raise, but there's also a lot of people who don't get a raise that don't make the news, right? And there's a lot of people getting squeezed out by automation. Um, so we're seeing that happen as well. So this is another thing to watch. So if you've got flat hourly earnings overall and fewer hours worked and fewer job openings and people sit around on a Friday night having a cold one and talk about this, oh yeah, my mandatory overtime went away or my voluntary overtime went away, either one. So I guess I'm going to make less money, right?
Yeah.
Well, people start talking about that, and then they start going, "Wow, that happened to Bob, and that happened to Susie. Maybe we should tighten things up around here a little bit just to be safe." And that starts driving behavior.
And again, when we talk about tightening, we go back to deflation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we're going to take it out with this because I thought of you with the rescue, with the Red Cross work you've done. You want to explain this one to us here with Baby Yoda?
In the event of a tornado, put some wieners in your pockets. That way the surge dogs will find you first.
Proactive thinking. Proactive thinking.
Oh, you're a genius.
Telling
Love
you.
this.
So when the power goes out,
Yeah.
get those hot dogs into your pockets right away before they go bad, and then you'll be the first one. So real world, actionable advice here on Coffee with Rich.
That's right, man. Oh God, what a great show, Will. Thank you so much for putting these together, my friend. I know that I speak for everybody who appreciates it because they watch and consume this content. Hopefully you can use it not as just entertainment, but to make some good decisions for you and your family and improve and increase your prosperity, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Yep. Providing for the family. That's why we do what we do, right?
Amen, Brother Will. And whenever you're ready, sir, take us out.
All right. Folks, fight's coming. Be ready.